Hello there, and welcome to the Empire of the Suns podcast. My name is Kellan Olson, joined as always by Kevin Zimmerman. Hello, Kevin.
Hey. We're back. It's kind of a quiet season for basketball, huh? There's some FIBA games coming up.
DeAndre Ayton is going to be spending part of his summer playing for the Bahamas in Olympic pre-qualifying. Essentially, DeAndre is participating in a tournament leading up to the tournament to qualify for the Olympics beginning in mid-August. And so if the Bahamas win that tournament, they will qualify for the actual qualifying for the Olympics. Now, the best way to qualify for the Olympics is to play in the FIBA World Cup, which Suns fans will be at least a little bit familiar with at this point because Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson are going to be playing for Team USA. That is the best way to qualify for the Olympics. That's how the U.S. is probably going to qualify for the Olympics unless something goes horribly wrong. But Bahamas, Nigeria, other teams that we'll be keeping an eye on did not actually qualify for that World Cup. So now they've got to go in this pre-qualifying stage and then another qualifying stage where I believe it's going to be 24 total teams in July of next year, and there's only going to be 4. So it's interesting because those take place during the NBA offseason, and I would assume or presume that DeAndre's involvement this upcoming mid-August, in about a week and a half here, indicates that he is willing to not only play now, but play in July potentially, and then in the Olympics as well. It's kind of a long-term commitment of sorts, I would assume. Maybe he's just trying to get some run in. I don't really know exactly. He's on a team with Kai Jones and Buddy Hield. Kai and Buddy played a little bit during World Cup qualifying, but some of it takes place during the NBA season. Remember, DeAndre was out there last
he was going to play
last summer, and we thought we got reports that he was going to play, but he's officially on the roster and is expected to play in their games. That's coming in mid-August. I believe August 14th is the first game. If you've never watched a FIBA tournament, congratulations for being a normal person. You can watch them on FIBA's YouTube channel.
I'm excited to watch DA in just a different setting. You know, he's going to be one of the better players. They actually do have some good pieces around him.
He is their best player, I would say. Yeah.
But I'm going to watch. It's like what's in mid-August. That World Cup is later, I think. So Ahsoka's coming out. Wow. Huge month ahead for us in our watching.
We've got Big 12 possibilities we'll talk about later. And then there's that in mid-August, like you said, and then I believe the World Cup starts in late August and goes until mid-September, like September 10th. And then 3 weeks later, it's Media Day. So it's kind of crazy how even though it is the off-season, it feels like nothing is happening. There's certainly nothing happening right now, but there is going to be international basketball on, which is going to be fun to watch. So here's how we're going to do today's podcast. As you can tell by the labels everywhere, we are revisiting, ranking, just kind of zooming out and looking at the West as a whole. Of course, we're going to have a Suns perspective on this, but this is going to be mostly NBA talk. So if you want to find the Suns segments, you can dance around. I will spoil it and say that they're the second highest team that I've rated in the West. I have the Nuggets number 1. Spoiler alert. So if you want to go dance ahead to part 2 and listen to that, we are going to start this part. We're going to do part 1 today. And part 2 later in this recording as well.
Lower half of the West today.
To do the lower half of the West, but we're going to start the conversation, which we're going to do right now, on how the West looks as a whole, and if we believe that parity is on the rise, it's stalled out, it's taking a step back, because if you are a newer NBA fan, just like really the only problem with covering the NBA or watching it as a fan was that you knew LeBron James was going to come out of the East and you knew it was going to be the Spurs or someone else coming out of the West, right? You just kind of knew the Lakers and Kobe, whoever it was, right? And it always just felt like there were 3 or 4 teams that could win the championship, and that was it. And last year, we had so many moments where it was like, are the Pelicans the best team in the West? Are the Grizzlies the best team in the West? Are the Suns the best team in the West? Are the Nuggets the best team in the West? And we kind of just kept dancing around and trying to figure out who exactly was the favorite out here. There was a little bit of something in March where we were like, is it just going to be the Kings? Is it going to be the Kings? And again, we kept bouncing around trying to figure it out. Dallas makes the big move for Kyrie, and you're like, oh man, like in Dallas, that's not a 1/8 that anyone would want to embark on in a matchup specifically. So we just kept dancing around, and eventually the only thing, and I write this in the piece, that prevents the Nuggets from being treated as the end-all, be-all definitive favorite was that when Nikola Jokic stepped off the floor, they were a very bad basketball team. And when Nikola Jokic was on the floor, they were the best team in the league. And that balance usually doesn't work that well. But what happened in the playoffs is their net rating was exactly 0.0 when he was off the court, conveniently enough. We'll talk about them later. But what I'm seeing right now based on the odds and the win totals, and to spoil it, I have tiers coming out to kind of separate the teams beyond just rankings. I have the Suns and the Nuggets in their own tier, and then I write that basically 3 through 11 I think is a crapshoot. I have no idea. I have a good enough opinion and stance on it to like place these teams in certain orders and preferential stuff, things like that. But Vegas right now, via FanDuel, has the Nuggets at plus 480 to win the title. Then Suns at plus 850, so a big difference between the two of them still. But then the Warriors are all the way at plus 1400. And then when you go to over-unders for win totals for the season, the Nuggets are at 53.5. The Suns are at 52.5. And then it is the Warriors, Lakers, Clippers, Grizzlies, Mavericks, Timberwolves, Pelicans, Thunder, and Kings, all between 48.5 and 44.5. So Vegas believes that there's a cutoff. Do you think we're back to where it feels like, again, it's just one of these two teams going to come out of the West, or do you still believe, like I write in the piece, that I think 10 teams still could come out of the West? I'm not ruling it out.
Yeah, I mean the healthy part of the Nuggets season last year, I think, plays a big role. I think the Suns, honestly, even if they're like experimenting, resting guys, making their good for the playoffs, I'm not sure they come out of the West even. I think they'll be up there. But if we're looking at just health, like I think there could be 2 or 3 of those that we don't really know who could shoot up. Like, do the Mavericks suddenly just like, okay, off season, repackage some things around Luka and Kyrie? Do they suddenly jump into that? Do the Lakers, if they're healthy, do they jump into that? Clippers, again, they should be there.
Mm-hmm.
Pelicans should be there. Grizzlies should be there. So it really is just like health and do these things come together. And
your
talent's all the same as last year, basically. Like, you look at coaching changes, the Suns are the only one of these that matter, really. I just see it kind of the same as last year, end of last year.
It's your talent producing the way that it should.
Yes.
Because I think that, like I said, I don't think that the Warriors are more talented than the Pelicans. Like, I don't really see it. The Pelicans don't have Steph Curry, and that's probably going to be the difference. Like, the Lakers have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. If healthy, the Clippers have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. They could have James Harden with him as well. But you go through all of these teams, and I really don't believe. Like, I think the Kings might be the most well-rounded team in the entire conference right now. And they have a top 5 point guard and a top 5 center. It's like, what's to stop them? It's the only thing stopping them really is if there's not a big jump coming from Keegan Murray. And like we'll get more into them and other teams. And
some teams are more volatile. Like the Suns, in
Yes.
theory, could be volatile if one of their stars gets hurt, and then suddenly you're dealing with a lot of the figuring out role players without the stars. Pelicans, Zion, Clippers, health.
I was just bouncing back and forth pretty much between every single team, and more so focusing on either negative or positive based on what the overall conclusions are on each team. And something that I wrote for the Suns specifically is, if we're in April and we're still trying to figure out who their 5th and 6th best players are, they're in trouble. But if they figure this out by January, which is when most teams figure that out, and I believe when they will figure it out, I think they're going to be the team to beat. So, assuming the big 3 and the big 4, as I should put it, is working out okay. So, in just to kind of end that discussion, you are still with me that it's not just 2 teams, and you do. To be clear, what I'm saying is, if the Pelicans win the West, I am not going to be absolutely bamboozled and shocked. Will I be surprised? Of course, I'll be surprised. But will I be absolutely stunned if the Clippers or the Warriors? To be clear, I put it as 10 teams.
Yeah.
The 10 teams that I have are the Nuggets, Suns, Warriors, Lakers, Clippers, Grizzlies, Mavericks, Timberwolves. Yeah, I said it.
Ooh,
The Pelicans and the Kings. I'm only disqualifying the Thunder, who I'm very high on. We'll talk about them in part 2. I'm only disqualifying them because they're so young. They don't have any playoff experience, and I don't think they can win the West based on that. Now, what we have seen is a trend in the last couple of years where teams with no playoff experience going into the playoffs seem unfazed by that. The Kings, I mean, it's a first-round exit, but everyone forgets if De'Aaron Fox doesn't break his hand, if Harrison Barnes hits that 3, if Steph doesn't go absolutely nuts in Game 7, that they could start to take that down. Their inexperience really only showed in Game 7, and that was it. But I do believe that maybe that's being a bit extreme to the noise that you made in response to that, Kevin. But those are the 10 teams that I'm not like. I'll rule out the other 5 teams right now not winning the West. Like I'll do that right now at this moment. But I'm not willing to rule out the other 10 teams yet. Not willing to do it. Maybe I'll do it in 3 weeks into the season, but right now, no.
Did you name the Thunder in those 10? You didn't, right?
No.
Okay.
I'm ruling them out right now.
Okay.
But we'll get to them. I'm excited about them.
Okay.
You're with me?
Pretty much, yeah. Shall we jump into this?
We'll go to specific teams, and you can kind of tell me who you're sold on, who you're not as sold on. But again, we're in part 1. We're going to get to the bottom half of the conference if you're more interested in like the top of the top. But again, we're going to get to like I have teams here in part 1 of the series. By the way, I don't think I said this. This is on ArizonaSports.com. I wrote a lot of words. Kevin basically let me go off
We're going to split this
without a leash.
podcast. We're going to split this podcast into 2 so you can.
We're going to even split the podcast into 2. Okay, we'll start at the bottom and go from here and break the worst 4 teams into one piece, basically. We've got the Blazers, who I put in their own tier, and I named it Did You Trade Damian Lillard Yet? Because I don't know where to put them exactly. And then the other tier is surprisingly plucky. That's where I put the Spurs, the Rockets, and the Utah Jazz. I believe all 3 of those teams, I think one of those teams is going to suck. They're just going to be really, really bad. But I do think that at least 2 of those teams, not at least one of those teams, probably 2 of them is going to be competitive enough to where they could beat any team on any night, essentially. And that's the age-old saying. Monty would say it all the time, like, this is the NBA. And he would compare it to 20, 30 years ago where, like, the NBA is just too talented now. And to our overall conversation, one point I did want to make there that I didn't is there's talk of like expansion in Seattle. The rumors are coming. Like the talent is perfect for that. There are times when the league expanded talent-wise, it made 0 sense.
You get Gerald Wallace and 0. Is that the Charlotte
you get those
Bobcats
rosters? I was looking at after doing a hoops grid, I was looking at the Grizzlies' history exactly, and you forget that they won like 19, 17. Like they just had no chance early on. I think the league's talent is at a point now where that's really fitting, and that goes to some of these teams where, for example, there's a condition, like there's a win condition of sorts here for these teams where they could be 30, 35 win teams. The Spurs one is pretty obvious. Victor Wembanyama is awesome right away, and we're talking about him as a potential all-star in his first year. I think the Utah Jazz's is really simple. They just play the way that they did last year. The Rockets have 2 guys who were top 3 picks in the last 2 years, and either of them could explode this year, and they've got a lot of really good, encouraging young talent behind them. They brought in vets. We'll get to that. I don't know how the combination's going to work exactly. There's one guy I'm specifically talking about, but Portland is the one where we just don't know what they're going to look like with Dame. With these 4 teams I mentioned, which one intrigues you the most? You have the most to say on who stands out?
I don't think Houston or San Antonio are actually going to be that good still.
You think they're still going to suck?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your
tiers. They
tiers.
both won 22 games last year.
Okay.
Right now,
I just don't think
Vegas has it at 28.5 for the Spurs and 31.5 for the Rockets. So they are projecting serious improvement for both of those
Here's
teams.
The crazy thing. If you combined their non-problems together, they'd be great. And I'd be like, this team's going to blow up.
Right.
Houston has a bunch of guys who can be on the ball, who can score, who can create. Porter Jr., Jalen, like, I love their pieces. Van Vliet to some degree, but I know Udoka's probably a good coach. I don't have any belief that he can suddenly just click them into playing defense, like just not doing the things like when the Suns were terrible in this past decade, where like they'll be competing just fine, and then you see the threads like pulling and then it just falls out and then they're down 20 in the game. Like, I don't know how you get over that. I don't think Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks can solve all of those issues, although they can do a little bit. And then I see the Spurs with the other problem. They don't have enough dribble guys. I guess they have shooting. If Vassell takes a leap enough where he can like start doing like the Mikal Bridges of this past year, obviously not to that degree, but even just to
looked like it was kind of sort of happening last year.
Like, click, hey bud, go score 20. We need that from you. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. Then I think that maybe they can. And if Wembanyama, I think he's going to have some people are going to go at him. I think he's not going to have consistency, but I think he's going to flash all year. But he's going to help. So, yeah, 35 wins, maybe each of those teams. But then you get into all the other great teams, and it's hard to kind of just make the math work, right?
Yeah, that's the important part here, is that from a math perspective, you have to understand that there's got to be one or two teams in here that wins under 25 games in order for all of these teams to finish. We're either going to see a bunch of 41, 39 win teams in like the 6th seed, or we're going to see some win totals like last year, for example, to kind of bring it together. Denver 53, Memphis 51, Sacramento 48, and then between 45 and 42, we had 6 teams, and then the Thunder were at 40, Dallas 38, Utah 37, Portland 33, and then, like I said, 22 for Houston and San Antonio. I think my pick for the question that I asked is San Antonio. I'm worried is a heavy word, you know? It's a heavy word. But the thing that stood out to me the most from watching Wembanyama in Vegas is that every single night, at least for the foreseeable future, we'll see by year 3 or year 4 of his career, but every team, they're only going to have one thing in mind, is like making him look like a punk, basically, like punking him, basically. That's all they're going to be focused on. And I'm not saying it's the coaching staff doing that. I just say from a players on the floor mindset, they want to go at him and show that he sucks. And that is just an undeniable thing that has existed in basketball since the beginning of time, is looking across from someone and for whatever reason, they just tick you off and you're like, I want to put this guy in the dirt. I want to prove that he doesn't belong on the same floor as me. And he is going to be that guy in the league for at least this year and maybe longer. And that just comes with a lot of maturity that he's going to have. It's going to have to come with extreme amounts of adversity, because let's say they play the Pelicans the opening night. Guess who's getting the ball the first 6 possessions? Jonas. Like, Jonas is getting the ball every single possession.
They're going to put him in screen actions.
Yeah, and if he's guarding Zion, for example, on New Orleans, guess who's getting the ball every time? You know what I mean? Like, they are going to relentlessly go at him, and I think that it's just going to have to take a while for him to adapt to that and also figure out a way to make that stop. Because it took 4 years for DeAndre to stop getting challenged by perimeter guards on switches. They just saw him as food, and then Reggie Jackson couldn't get by him, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
What? What's going on here? He's going to need moments like that. I like Vassell a lot. I like Jeremy Sohan a lot. The nugget that I included in the story is that if you weren't paying attention to the Spurs in the second half of the season, which I don't blame you, he started shooting one-handed free throws. You might remember seeing it on TikTok or whatever. And he improved his shot. And I think for a rookie to do that is a whole lot different than a veteran changing their free throw attempt, because we've all been in the stadium before when that happens, when Chuck Hayes is like taking 4 seconds to do his wind-up.
Plumlee's doing lefties.
I was there at those playoff games when he was taking those, and the crowd every time will just kind of start laughing, but also being absolutely transfixed by them and being like, why
does that look so unnatural? Oh, that's not his hand that he shoots with. That's why.
Yeah.
Good pickup. Yeah.
I think that he's going to be good. There's a weird Keldon Johnson thing going on, because I looked into him quite a bit when I was looking up trade possibilities with DA, where I don't know if he stagnated last year, but Vassell clearly leaped above him, and Sohan's probably above him too. So all of a sudden, 3 years ago, you're talking about the guy that's on the Olympic team, and now you're talking about the guy who is probably overpaid on their team for what they need out of him, I guess. And I said, like, is this a Tyreek Evans situation where he was just a little bit too good too fast, and he kind of can't figure out how to get better from here?
Oh.
I don't know exactly. I don't want to set off too many red flags. To be clear, I don't think that's happening, but that's San Antonio to me. I think they're going to suck. I'm worried about point guard. I think the Trey Jones is going to be good, but Devontae and Cam behind that.
Cam's going to actually be very useful.
Cam is going to be also useful and also important, and I think that he's going to play well for them. But I just think that they clearly, the Chris Paul trade was so fascinating because it just made so much sense to going to them. And it felt like if they could have gotten the right kind of veteran point guard in there, which I think is what Cam is going to be for them, then they could have had a real chance to be good. To quickly skip past Houston, I believe in Smith a lot, Jabari Smith Jr. I love Alperen Şengün. I love Tari Eason. Jayshawn Tate kind of faded away, and I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Wasn't watching much Rocket State, but I still believe that he's a good glue guy at the very latest. I think Jock's going to be really good there. I think Jeff Green's going to be good there. Amin Thompson, to be honest, I had not seen the Thompson twins play until Vegas, and I was like, "Oh, you guys are exactly the type of player that I like."
Yes,
like
this is why you're top. What? Both top 5?
You're basically a Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. We're taking you second overall. We know you're not going to be averaging 27 points per game at any point, but you just do a bunch of winning things all over the floor. Tough comparison with how Michael Kidd-Gilchrist's career turned out. They're not going to be as bad as that, to say the least. But that kind of top 5 pick where Jabari was in the same sort of grouping, he has more star potential, surely. But there's just the appeal starts with what you are as a base player with how much you help winning. I think he's going to be good for them. I think Fred VanVleet is really good, and to my point on what San Antonio needs, that's what Houston needed, and they bring it with him. I hope he's ready to take 7 shots some nights because he's playing with Dillon Brooks in the backcourt as well as Jalen Green and Jabari Smith who need the ball. I'm very curious to see how, of all the X factors for them, I actually do think it's VanVleet and Brooks, the guys who you expect to be the most steady from the veteran mindset at least. Those are the 2 guys who are going to have to sacrifice the most. It's actually not going to be the young guys because the primary goal here, and I wrote this, Udoka's biggest thing is going to be untapping the potential from Green and Smith, because if they do that, they're going to be a playoff team by 2025. If they don't, they might have to blow it up again. It really does hinge on these 2 guys and how good they are going to be exactly, because I think that the pieces around them are really good. So they are the most volatile to me of the bottom half teams, I'll say. I think they're going to suck again. I think that they'll be really fun. I think they'll win 28 games. They'll make improvements. My sleeper team here is the Utah Jazz.
Tell us why.
You and I kept coming back and doing this show every week, and we kept reading off those standings, and we kept saying, Utah's just still there. They're still there. They just traded Mike Conley and Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley. Sexton's not even playing anymore, and they're just still there. Markkanen got hurt. And then eventually, with 11 games to go in the year, they were 35-36. They were a 500 basketball team. And then Sexton played a game after that, and then I think Markkanen played 3. They lost all 3 of those, and then they shut them down. Were they really hurt? I don't know. Whatever it was, they stopped playing. People in Utah can cite to that more than they can. But I think the biggest appeal to me, I cited, do you remember that game in Utah? Like 15 games into the year? It was like
Against
134,
Suns,
133. Jordan Clarkson had a couple of big shots that the Suns lost. I left that being like Hardy's legit.
Yeah.
The way that they're playing, like the way we're seeing Clarkson and Sexton and guys that, not selfish players by any means, but guys who needed to make that transition into learning how to affect winning the most more than anything, and they were doing it.
Gerald Green on Suns, 13-14 type stuff from them, kind of.
That's a really good comparison.
Although Clarkson had more of a resume and that kind of thing, but I guess he was on good Lakers teams or competitive ones to some degree. So,
and they threw out. I remember writing a preview piece for playing the Jazz later in the year and being like, "Hey, Lauri Markkanen's probably going to be an all-star. Look at this. He can just score everywhere. He's awesome." And him playing alongside both Olynyk and Kessler or whoever it was exactly that was in there, and it just worked. Like the supersized lineup works because Markkanen actually played the 3 in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And got to learn how to do that, learn how to play that spot defensively.
7-footer flying off screens on the wing or on the elbow. Yeah.
He was so good at bully ball last year. I don't know what the statistics said, but whenever I watched him, at least it was there. Walker Kessler is, to me, the number 1 guy I'm looking forward to watching in the World Cup because I haven't seen him in that type of role on a different team.
He was like far and away. There was someone else up there in blocks, maybe Rudy or something last year, but his block numbers, rates, insane.
He is conveniently the best young defensive center we've seen since Rudy. Where it's like this guy could win Defensive Player of the Year. That's how good that he looks defensively. And those guys have been sandwiching Kelly Olynyk, and now Kelly Olynyk is John Collins. John Collins had a rough year last
John
year,
Collins.
but they got him for free.
Yeah.
And this basically boils down to how you believe in him, the story there, and it shares some similarities with Ayton, not including the 25-game suspension that both of them had. But 2 years ago, like DeAndre, the same postseason, he was the second best player on an Eastern Conference Finals team. He was really good in the playoffs. I just remember watching those games and being like, man, he's playing so well. And then he kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Atlanta has 14 guys. They've got a new backcourt. It didn't go well for him there. But here is like the perfect sort of like, it's such a great cushion of a reset for him to just kind of settle down. For the third straight team, though, and this is where I'm like, are point guards, like, do point guards exist anymore? Because I look at this team and they've got Clarkson and Sexton, who, again, I said they've made strides as playmakers, but there's a Talen Horton-Tucker thing going on here. I don't really know what to think of it. And then they need more wings. Ochai Agbaji is someone we really liked in the pre-draft process, both you and I, out of Kansas. I think that he's looking more and more like the player that we thought we would expect him to be. Haven't seen a lick of Taylor Hendricks, but everything that I read about him out of UCF, glue guy stuff, bigger wing, rebounds, block shots, defensive specialist of sorts. Sounds like exactly what they need. They are the one team to me out of all of these. Like, I think there's just a clear divide here, 3 through 11, like I said. But Utah, I wouldn't be surprised if they won 42 games next year and they were the 7 seed. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Markkanen's that good. I think the only thing missing in your head is the star, and it's like he just made the All-Star team in the West last year. Like, legitimately, he deserved it.
Do you
it wasn't
remember
some injury replacement crap? Like, he deserved it.
Do you remember he came out the year after Ayton, one year at Arizona? Sean Miller was like, "This is the best player through my program ever, most talented," and it was like, "Wait, you just had the number 1 overall? Okay." There's a reason he said that, and Suns fans probably are laughing at that, but Ayton was still really good in college. And also he's had, like, Sean Miller had Aaron Gordon, that kind of player, so he does not say things like that unless he means it, and, like, that's why I'm not surprised about Lauri. Like, just kind of taking a little time, finding the right situation to be as good as we kind of thought he could be. You have Clippers on this list.
I was going to ask you.
Pretty low.
So I have Tier 1, Head and Shoulders, meaning the top 2 we talked about. Tier 2 is knocking on the door, which is I believe that these teams are a lot closer. These 3 teams are a lot closer than people think to those top 2, and they could easily beat those teams in the playoff series if they're playing well. Tier 3, I can't remember exactly what I referred to it as. Is I said, "Are you sure you're on the list?" with a question mark, and it essentially is, "Are you sure you're a contender?" And it's 3 teams where I feel extremely good about them being a good basketball team, but can they be a great basketball team?
Yeah.
I don't know. And the tier beyond that is basically tier 3 again, but like I need to see it.
Yeah.
I can't believe in you again. I can't get fooled by you again, and I'm putting the Pelicans not on this list. I'm putting them on tier 3. You could argue they should be in tier 4, but these are the 3 teams. I've got the Minnesota Timberwolves 11th. I've got the LA Clippers 10th, and I've got the Dallas Mavericks 9th. Which of those teams, so I believe, here's my prediction. This season is going to go horribly wrong for one of those 3 teams.
Yes, yeah.
Which one is it going to be, Kevin Zimmerman?
Ooh.
You've got Jason Kidd and Kyrie Irving together. You've got the team that never stays healthy and all of a sudden doesn't have as much depth as you once thought in the Clippers, who might trade more of that depth to get James Harden, who it's been rocky. And then you've got the Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen McDaniels punching walls, Rudy Gobert punching teammates.
Okay.
Anthony Edwards changing numbers. That's just a random fact. That wasn't a bad thing.
That's not a random fact. That should be accounted for, that you're punching teammates, punching walls.
The number
but
changes,
I think that team is the least volatile. Like, I think that team is maybe, 40 to 48 wins.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's volatile. I don't know. But I don't think Like, I think I know where they'll land. I think they'll be fine. They'll be competitive in some if Edwards takes a leap.
It's kind of that quartet, right, where you know Ant's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
You know that Mike Conley's going to be rock solid. You know that Kyle Anderson's going to be rock solid, and you know Nas is going to be really good.
Carl and Rudy are who they are. I don't know if it'll work out, but they're still impactful basketball players.
They're still very, very good. It's just, can you win a title with them, which is the whole point why you trade for and protect first-round picks. And you can't. You cannot. I don't think you can win 2 playoff series, but
I believe in that team with more certainty. I guess I should believe in the Clippers too, because even if dudes are not healthy, like I spent so much time with that series in Phoenix or with Phoenix saying like I believe in Ty Lue. There's a reason the Suns probably could have like tried to get Ty Lue as their coach because he's really good. He gets the most out of all of his players. They fight every night. So their bottom is not high. So to answer your question, I guess I'm going with the Dallas Mavericks because I don't believe in the talent around their 2 very good players. I don't believe their 2 very good players I think they can figure out a way to win games, but I'm worried of like just mostly the Kyrie personality, and I think Luka's probably not the easiest guy to deal with if you're doing the stuff Kyrie might do. And like I don't want to say they're bad teammates and all that stuff, but I just see Kyrie getting grumpy about something and Luka not putting up with it. I don't think it's like when we say Book, KD, and Bradley Beal can coexist, like there are going to be problems on the court and figuring out just the flow and all that and how things you transition between who's doing what. But I think they're going to be fine. But I'm not confident about the 2 personalities in Dallas. I'm not confident that their head coach, from what we know about him in the past, is going to be the perfect guy to like be like, hey guys, let's meet and talk and be honest and figure things out. I just don't believe that. And then again, I don't believe in the talent around them. So yeah, that's my pick for like things could go awfully for that team.
Let's go back to the Wolves for a second.
Okay.
Well, when I talk about under the radar, I'm talking all the technology in the world is not going to find this on the radar for this point, to be clear. Here are the Wolves' best players in no particular order. They've got Mike Conley and Anthony Edwards. They got Kyle Anderson. They got Naz Reid. They got Jaden McDaniels. They got Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
7 guys.
I like all those players.
Who's our 8th best player?
I don't know.
So they've got Nickeil Alexander Walker.
Okay.
They got Shake Milton. My point here is, before we run through the names, Jalen Noel, who was mixed for them, he's still a free agent. That's the thing, is that like Kelly Oubre Jr. could be signed by one of these teams. There's still some free agent things we're waiting for right now to happen. We should have cited that earlier, but with that in mind, Jalen Noel played a lot of minutes for them, and Taurean Prince played a lot of minutes for them. And here are the replacement candidates. Nickeil Alexander Walker, who had some playoff moments.
Yeah.
Looked kind of fun. Looked like something might be happening there. Longtime favorite of yours.
Yeah.
Shake Milton, longtime favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I like that. Jordan McLaughlin, RIP Pac-12. We'll have more on that later. Troy Brown Jr., RIP Pac-12 Part 2.
Yeah.
Remember Wendell Moore out of Duke? He looms.
He looms.
They took Leonard Miller in the first round.
They
got Josh Minot. I can't remember. He's a similar kind of just like high upside grab. Luka Garza and Jalen Clark are on 2 ways. Do you think there's a clear 8th best player there?
No, but I like their options of guys who could pop into there.
If Kyle Anderson gets hurt, they're screwed. Or Mike Conley.
Yeah.
They're absolutely screwed.
Alexander Walker, I could say.
Now, you can play the injury game with anyone, to be clear, but I'm saying like the depth options, just it's rough. It's brutal.
Is Brown Jr., he's like competent?
I don't know, man. I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm hesitant.
But if you play that game with Dallas, like, I don't know if I see anything different.
So the Clippers are low.
Yeah.
I think that I have them low.
Yeah.
Here's my issue.
Okay.
Didn't write this. Ty Lue.
Yeah.
Top 3 head coach in the world.
Doesn't have a new contract right now.
He does not. His one flaw, according to those who follow the team closer, doesn't like playing young guys. He's got to play Kenny Martin Jr. He's got to play Bones Highland. That's where their team is at right now.
He played Bones Highland in the playoffs, and I think Kenny Martin Jr. will do enough to earn trust. Like, do Terrence Mann stuff.
It's the trust factor, because
Yeah.
Terrence Mann Jr. has been one of their 5 best players now for 3 years in a row, and he still kind of is in that range where he doesn't really get playing time necessarily.
But does he do enough? Does he give you enough? Like, I think he played Bones, not necessarily because he thought Bones was doing great, because there were legit, like, are you going to bench Bones talk?
Mm-hmm.
But he also is very aware, like, oh, no, we need a little scoring pop. You got to play, bud. So I think he's aware.
I really like their guard rotation. You got Russ,
Yeah.
which, talk about it. 8 takes aging well. Good job by us. Out of way. Norman Powell. That guy's good. Is he great? Do they need him to be great? I don't think so. He just needs to be good. And then you get to Bones. So it's not like they're absolutely relying on Bones by any means, but third guard on the team, I would assume. Maybe it's Russ starting, Norman coming off the bench again, with who their 5 is going to be, not really sure. On the wing, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Terrence Mann, and then it is Nicholas Batum, and this is the part that I wrote, is Nicholas Batum, Marcus Morris, Robert Covington. All 3 guys have been declining. They're hitting that wall.
Knees, man.
And knees are tough. And it's coming at a bad time, because now they need Kenny Martin Jr., and that's why I'm going to say there's going to be nights where he keeps playing Batum over Martin, and Twitter's going to be freaking out. And they're just going to be like, why is he not playing Kenny Martin Jr.? I think that's going to be a problem for them. But then a rock-solid part and underrated part of their team, like Zubac, Plumlee, like in terms of center partnerships in the league, like that's top 5 probably in the league.
Yeah.
Neither guy is top
fun.
10 at the position. I'm not saying that by any means, but I think, again, it comes back to health. I think that they're positioned better than a team like Minnesota, for example, if injuries hit, because I do think that if Paul George or Kawhi Leonard gets hurt, that just forces him to play Terrence Mann more, and it forces him to play Martin more, and they'll be okay. But going to Dallas, and this is the similar kind of... So they are the most polarizing team. Jeremy's holding up a James Harden sign. I don't care. Joel Embiid saved that man from a week of first take, and I'll leave it at that. Look at the numbers at the end of the series. It's happened, how many series now? 6? It's been 6 playoff series in a row where he's done this? Not in a row, but the wall in the second round, Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, whatever you want to call it exactly, it's been hit. There's the James Harden take. Can't read that. Oh, RIP.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to it in
Pac-12.
part 2. We'll have Cats talk coming. Don't you people worry.
We have Cats talk today, yeah.
All the people protesting outside our building, asking if we've been silenced. We have not been. Been by choice. The Mavericks. Polarizing Kevin.
Do the same thing you did with the Wolves for the Mavericks. Please.
Okay,
Please, sir.
But let me bounce it back to you.
Okay.
Of your concerns with them, and this is why I feel like 9 might have been too high, but I just like the Luka Kyrie thing. Luka and Kyrie are so good. Even when they were barely holding on for wins, Kyrie was single-handedly winning them games at the end of the year, and I was like, oh my gosh, like these two together, it's incredible. Are your concerns, I'll list 3. 1, where you're going, which is the team around them, / how do they fit together, like the balance of it all. 2, the volatility factor of Kyrie and Jason Kidd, I'll combine them. Just the volatility factor of either guy and their histories. 3, Luka. And is he ready to be, because last year he was not ready to be, you win 48 games every year with me, which is the LeBron thing. You knew every single LeBron team was going to threaten on 50 wins. It didn't matter if Boobie Gibson and Mo Williams and Sasha Pavlovich and Zadrunas Nasel got, that's what shaded Big Z. Big Z was really good. Larry Hughes, whoever.
Larry Hughes was good.
JJ Hickson.
Not Cavs Larry Hughes so much, but
yeah, a lot of hoop grids being played right now, as you can tell, by us getting through the doldrums of August. Which 3? Which of
those 3?
Which are you the most worried about? Which one do you think is going to be the most solid? Because I think there's 3 ways this could go
Number
wrong.
1, number 1 was what? The guys around them. I don't know what their team is. Like, I know...
Me too.
Those 2 are individually really good, but, like, I guess if we compare it to the Suns this past year, like, Book could go crazy and win them games, but I knew, like, they had a system, right? And people can get mad at Monty Williams for what his system. We know what their team was. And even with KD, it changed, but it's like, okay, we know what this team is each night, and it's going to be competitive. I have zero idea because we didn't see it last end of the regular season and all that stuff of how they coexist and have the pieces around them to be good. Like before that, it was very clear. It was like, Luka, you have to do a lot. We have to play pretty good defense, and we're going to space the crap out of everything.
So
you can maybe convince me if we go over this and I'm like, oh, actually they do have that identity still, but I'm not sure.
Let's go there.
Okay.
I'll name these guys the Derek White All-Stars, and they are the people who are the best glue guys in the league. I think these were the Mikal Bridges All-Stars, but he is transcended. Cam Johnson's in this list. You kind of go through the teams, you'll find the guys. Grant Williams makes the list.
Yeah.
Are we sure he's better than Dorian Finney-Smith?
No.
Yeah. I couldn't get past that when I was thinking about this team. I couldn't get past how, one, alarming it was how much better I felt about them after getting Grant Williams, when two, I feel like Grant Williams is good. Do I feel like he is...
starter quality for sure.
He's
good.
supposed to be their third best player, right? I'm reading this right?
Yeah, that's where I'm...
Okay. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic are starting.
Whoa, yeah. Okay.
Grant Williams is starting. For that other spot, here are your choices. Assuming they don't play a big lineup and they just have 4 centers, right? Seth Curry, Dante Exum, back from an international bit of service.
Maybe he's a good shooter now.
Jaden Hardy, Josh Green, very good year for Josh Green.
Yeah.
RIP Pac-12 Part 3. Olivier Maxence.
No idea.
Prosper. He's 6'8", 230. He looks like a wing built in a lab. That's all I know about him. That's it. Which guy is it?
Josh Green makes sense, but...
Okay, so Josh Green is 6'5".
Josh Green
Kyrie
needs
is 6'2".
I guess I'm thinking about starting. I don't know who's... Are you asking who the 4th best player is or 3rd?
Who's starting?
Okay, yeah. Starting Josh Green.
So Grant Williams at the 4.
Josh Green...
Which is where he is going to be anyway.
Can do perimeter defense stuff, kind of like in a Kogi situation.
You need someone out there to defend the guards. You need someone out there to defend Jamal Murray.
Great
De'Aaron
athlete.
Fox, Steph.
I guess Exum also, if he tends to be...
It's either Exum or Green. I think Green might need to come off the bench because of the pop you need beyond Seth Curry. But that's it. Okay, the 5th starter.
A big?
It will be a big. Maxi Kleber wasn't that good last year, and it was just weird. It didn't really make sense. He was injured, which was probably why. But he went from really good, everyone loves Maxi Kleber, to like, what's going on there? Rashawn Holmes didn't play in Sacramento for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike Brown would have played him over Alex Len if
there's a reason.
If there was a reason. For defense, look, I completely understand as a dive man. I think 2-3 years ago when Rashawn was getting talked about as a trade chip, I was like, send him to Dallas, put him with Luka, he'll be perfect. But this team needs defense, which is where I get to JaVale McGee. It was really rough last year for him. And then Derek Lively Jr., this was the lottery pick that they obviously tanked for. On paper, from a scouting report, seeing brief moments of his at Duke, seems like exactly what they need. Seems like the defensive fit, seems like the offensive fit. You're not running sets for him. He's just going to do all the stuff. He's going to do the DeAndre Ayton role of 2021, basically. But he's a rookie. He's a young rookie. He was born in 2004. That might be asking a bit too much out of the kid early on. We'll see. I'm with you. This is not my number one concern. I blend all 3 of those concerns together.
Yeah.
I think that what Luka did last year sucked. Coming to camp out of shape. Didn't think he was that kind of guy.
We watched FIBA clips of him yesterday for Slovenia. He was shouldering into a guy who went flying, stopped playing basketball during a live play, stared at the man, and then shouldered into some guy who came to help him and got an and one. He needs to have the angry Luka basketball playing abilities off the bat, in good shape. He might be because he's playing this summer. We'll see.
So Tim McMahon said over the summer, basically, that Luka showed up to training camp weighing 260. He's a very large man. He can wear that weight well to a certain extent, but it was clear watching him like he just was going to get going through the regular season. And when you're this guy, that just can't happen. Like that, we haven't had this type of talk about a star in a long time. It's been a while. Like, yeah, it comes up with Zion or whatever, but there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with it. And it was just, as a basketball fan, it was disappointing because, like I said, in theory, you put Luka or Giannis or Steph or Jokic or Embiid or whoever, LeBron, on a team, they should win at least 45 games, 50. They could be surrounded by the three of us on the court, and they should still win that many games. But this team was just not good all year. They never even had that like 3-week stretch where you're like, here it comes. Never happened. And that's on him. It's just on him. So that part I expanded on a bit because I think the Kyrie, Jason Kidd stuff speaks for itself. There were some Jason Kidd quotes towards the end of the year. Do you remember those? Where we were like, oh my gosh. He was just blatantly calling out his team in the media, just blatantly, game after game.
Shutting down people.
And then there's the depth.
Tanking.
So those are the lists of reasons why I'm skeptical about them. But look, every single day, to what I said about Luka last year, he clearly learned from this. Because there's clips every day of him working out. And like, yes, Instagram workouts, whatever you want to call them.
Got engaged.
He's a happier man with a long-term future in his life romantically. I don't know where you wanted me to take that. I tried my best.
He's working on himself. He's next step in his life.
He's
blah,
clearly
blah, blah, blah,
learned from it, and you can watch him in the Slovenia friendlies that he was playing. Like, he looks like he's in much better shape right now already. Like, better shape than he was in at the end of last season. Like, he just kept it going, essentially, and he learned from it. He's 24 years old. He's made first-team All-NBA every year since his second year in the league. Like, he's incredible, but they need him to be incredible, and he just wasn't that incredible last year in terms of doing the superstar stuff as we talk about it. I did not mention Tim Hardaway Jr., by the way, as a candidate there. He'll come off the bench, but that's a problem is they need Dante Exum to be the revamped three-point shooter, defensive specialist guy because Seth Curry is out there for offense, Tim's out there for offense, Josh Green is out there for two-way stuff, but then after that, Jaden Hardy's out there for offense.
Yeah.
It's too much offense. Their defense was laughable last year when Kyrie got there. It was horrific. And maybe Luka's the guy to take a step forward defensively. I don't know, but I'm pessimistic on them as a whole. All right, we'll wrap up part one there. A lot to get to in part two right now, but yeah, it's crazy to divide it up here and think like I can see Dallas with the trophy. Like I can see it. I can see it. See it.
No, I can't. I can't see that with this roster. Not with this roster, no.
Okay, we'll have to get your final number because I'm still sticking with 10. But you're ruling them out right there. After we rolled through
Seth
the next Curry and Dante Exum, you were ready.
No.
I don't know. All right, part two should be in your feeds. We're releasing these simultaneously. So if you're looking for it and it's not there for some reason, tweet at us. It's our fault probably, or it's your service not working. But we'll take the blame more often than not. All right, we'll be back. We're going to start with tier 3. We're going to work from the bottom, work our way up. Are you sure you're on the list? And these are 3 teams where I believe everything should add up to them being a contender, but for some reason I'm just a smidge worried, if not altogether worried, that they're not going to be a contender, but I believe enough is there for it to happen, basically. And this is very similar to tier 4 that I talked about, which included the Timberwolves, Clippers, and the Mavericks. I think a lot of people would flip these, for example.
Yeah.
Like the 3 teams are the Pelicans at 8, the Memphis Grizzlies at 7, and yes, I haven't said them yet, folks, the Oklahoma City Thunder at 6. I'm buying, baby. I'm buying everything you're selling. Yeah. Give me all that. We'll get to them. I could see, and I write this later, 3 through 11, if you rank them in any order, if you put the Dallas Mavericks 3, I'm not going to call you an idiot. Like, I'm not going to think you have no idea what you're talking about. If you put the Minnesota Timberwolves 5th, I'm like, yeah, sure. All right. I don't know how it's going to go. You're more skeptical or whatever. I'm just giving people a break, man. I've got the Pelicans at 8. I think this is a team that a lot of people are going to put 9, 10, or 11, and this is probably going to be a bit too generous to them. Here's my case. You ready?
Yeah.
Are you with that argument? Do you kind of see that being the consensus on them, that they're going to be seen as a team that is more towards the bottom than the top?
Yeah, no one trusts Zion fairly, but even Zionless, I think they should be better than last year.
Last year went really well at the start of the year, where people like myself who were picking them to make, I think I picked them to make the Western Conference Finals. I can't remember exactly how high I went on that projection. We were 20 games in, it was looking great.
Yeah.
And then Brandon Ingram got hurt. And then Mr. Williamson got hurt yet again. And it was a free fall. Looked like they weren't even going to make the play-in. And there was an 18-game stretch, the last 18 games of the year, where there was no other solution. It was not going to be C.J. McCollum. Brandon Ingram had to be a first-team All-NBA looking guy. He had to be one of the best players in the world for the last quarter of the season. And guess what, Kevin? That's what he was. He averaged 27, 6, and 7. Yes, 7 assists per game. And he shot 52% from the field. Suns fans know this guy. They saw him in that first round 2 years ago. Maybe not with the playmaking in mind, but man, when I saw those assist totals for the first couple of games of March, I was like, what's going on over there? So then I was watching the Pelicans almost every night when the Suns weren't playing. And let me tell you something, that something happened with him. I think that he is going to, if I had to pick 15 guys to make All-NBA, maybe I'll feel differently, but I want to pick him to make All-NBA this year, just based on the way that he was playing. I thought that he was not only looking like an All-Star, but an All-NBA guy. And then conveniently, at the same time, guess who's averaging 20 points per game alongside him? Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy looked incredibly legit as a scorer, and of course he came into the league 3-and-D, glue guy, Mikal Bridges. We talk about the Derek White All-Stars. Trey Murphy is on there. Maybe who was it we were talking about with the Mikal Bridges
Herb Jones?
thing? No, from episode part 1. We were talking about one of those teams, and we were talking about this is a guy who could make like the Devin Vassell. We were talking about Devin Vassell and being like, maybe he has a Mikal Bridges type scoring leap. That's basically what Trey Murphy did in the last 20 games of last year. We thought that this was going to come from Herb Jones, and in the first 10 games of the year, he was doing off dribble stuff. He was knocking down threes off the dribble, and I was like, here he is. And it turned out to be Murphy, actually. And Herb Jones, by the way, one of the best defenders on planet Earth. Jose Alvarado's shown flashes. Dyson Daniels did as well. I think Jordan Hawkins was one of the best, like the fit and the value for where he was picked out of UConn. I really liked him. He was one of the guys that I had highlighted in that class. Here's the case against that. Mr. Williamson, this is what he did last year. We have no idea, by the way. I don't think has anyone come out and said like he's going to play opening night?
He's in shape even. Like, we had the Luka in shape combo last pod.
He played 3 games to start the year, the first 3 games. Then he missed 2. Then he played 8. Then he missed 3. And then he played, I believe, 10 or 11 here, it looks like. And then he played 3. Missed 3. And he played 4 games. And then we didn't see him again for the rest of the year. Here's my other argument, Kevin. He played 29 games. He scored 25-plus points in 20 of those games. His season lows for points were 9 and 14. He was only in double digits, failed to get double digits once, and it was 9, and then he only failed to get to 15 a second time, which was 14. He is a top 15 to 20 player in the league when healthy, but we have to treat it like he's not healthy, right? Are you evaluating the Pelicans like he's playing? I can't do it.
No, I'm not.
But for the sake of this exercise, I would place them 11 if I just acted like he didn't exist. But he does exist, and there is a chance that, is he going to play 80 games next year? No. But could he play 50? And then could he be ready for the playoffs?
Yeah,
that's all we need, bud. Just get 50 or 60 in. Don't get shut down and play in the playoffs. That's all they need. Play in the play-in, whatever it's going to be. Exactly. If he plays in 55 games to the level he plays at, they're gonna win 50 games.
They're cruising, yeah.
They're going to be awesome because Ingram's going to be there, and now more naturally, it seems like C.J. McCollum is in that stage of his career right now where he is okay with being more floor general and like his just not diminishing returns exactly, but he's turning 32 later this summer. It looks like more of a third banana guy on a really good team like this, on a title contender. Maybe it's fourth. I don't really know exactly. But again, if Zion's healthy, you got him, Ingram, and then McCollum. It's a drop, McCollum. But then the guys after that, I'm encouraged about as well. I am still with them as a potential contender. Are you with me?
Yeah. Depth, vets, Jonas, like, dude, like people don't give him enough credit for just, like, you don't have to worry about the center. Like, he's going to play maybe 20 minutes some nights because of matchups, but you don't have to worry about him. I like all their young guys. They just draft wings that are good at something. And, yeah, I mean, it's weird because, like, Zion's almost like the Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi, but he's even different in the, like, it's not about, like, it's just the expectation is play half the games and be healthy for the playoffs, like you said. Like, the Clippers are at this point where they're done with it after this season if those two guys aren't healthy. So you know that this is their last year to give it a run, I think, on that team, and that was in our last podcast. But the Pelicans are, like, you don't even account for him, like you said, basically. Like, you just roll with it, and if he's healthy, great. And that's just basically juggling and rolling a dice or whatever is a good analogy.
I don't know if it's a tax thing, but there was Jonas talk like he could get traded, potentially. Keep an eye on what happens with him at center because they sneakily signed Cody Zeller as their third-string center.
Yeah,
but he
insurance.
showed in Miami that he's at least a third-string center, if not a backup center, because Larry Nance is still really good.
Yeah.
Is he healthy all the time? No, that's why Cody Zeller is there. They still have Najee Marshall, who's a favorite of ours. The Beef Boys menu, Kevin. It's back on the menu. E.J. Liddell, healthy. Could he be in there?
Wait, that was his rookie year, right? Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
Tore the ACL or the Achilles, whatever it was exactly, was out there in Summer League. Didn't look great, but I thought from a movement perspective, he looked
the draft pick of value, last year.
Loved that for him. I thought he was a first-round talent in that draft. Is Kyra Lewis a thing? We're going to find out sooner rather than later, because later that would not mean a good thing. Okay, that was a lot of Pelicans talk, so let's cruise by. Can we cruise by Memphis? Can we just go by?
Status quo, Marcus Smart, great. He will do the Dylan Brooks stuff with less being a jerk about it, and probably is better at it. Oh,
they got two things going.
Ja, please just don't. I hope his head space is okay or whatever you want to call it. That's all I hope.
In order for them to be a contender with like the wall that they seem to be, it just seems like they're going to keep headbutting their ceiling. That's what I wrote. One, apparently they've been trying to trade for a wing. It's like, try harder. What are you doing? You have a bunch of good young talents. I'll say, not players.
OG Anunoby's still out there,
but
boss.
Someone will take Zaire Williams, Jake LaRavia, and 3 first-round picks for someone like OG Anunoby or something. Just do it. Because what are you waiting for? Like, just because you're young doesn't mean your window is going to be 10 years long.
And then you're going to
treat it like this is going to be a decade-long thing.
That's the crazy part about how well they've done is, like, use it, please. Like, you have too much good stuff that you can't use, and you put 5 people on the floor. It doesn't matter if you're 20 people deep.
I believe they were the team that offered 4 or 6 first-round picks for McKell, and, like, yes, that makes sense.
Trade Kenneth Lofton. Like, you have so many pieces that are people would take and throw in some draft picks, and you're solid.
Old Kenny Jr. They need more on-ball equity, and they got Luke Kennard at the trade deadline, and then they replaced Tyus Jones with Derrick Rose. What are they doing? I don't understand why they aren't acting with more urgency. It's been really frustrating to me because I think that they could win the West. They could. The two things. One, in this current allotment at least, maybe they'll sign someone. Maybe they're the Kelly Oubre team. I have no idea what their MLE situation is right now, anything like that. They need Zaire Williams, Santi Aldama, David Roddy, or Jake LaRavia to suddenly be pretty good.
Yeah.
They need one of them to join what is arguably the best top 6 in the league when Morant, Bane, Smart, Jaren Jackson Jr., Steven Adams, Brandon Clark, maybe the best top 6 in basketball. Like, that's really, really, really good. That might seem like praise for guys like Adams or Clark or Bane or even Jackson maybe or Smart, but those guys, it goes under the radar what they're good at and what they're great at. Two, is this the year where it's like, there were points last year, 2 years ago, where it looked like Ja was going to be the new face of the league, basically. Mm-hmm. We were there. Is that going to happen this year? It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it's a good trend. 25 games is what he's going to miss, by the way. But can Bane take it? We were talking about 15 games into the year on our podcast. We were like, are they going to have the All-Star backcourt? Are both their guys going to make the All-Star team? And then he got hurt for a bit, and then he kind of sort of was that guy, but never quite got there. Jaren Jackson Jr.'s career trajectory has been really weird. Comes out of Michigan State as a stretch 5, basically, but more so this guy could be incredible defensively. And then he starts out as more of an offensive-minded guy in the NBA, and then all of a sudden he's Defensive Player of the Year. So it's like, okay, can he get back to that offensive development? So can one of those three guys, their top three, can one of them take a big step forward in their games? So the potential is there, but I just think this is going to be another 48 to 53 win team that gets bounced in the second round probably. Like that's just their fate right now until something changes either from a development perspective or they get aggressive on the market, which they very well could.
Fun team.
Speaking of fun, I think it's going to be the most fun team to watch in the league in terms of
I was talking about the team I'm watching you scroll. Sorry. Yes.
In terms of you're not a top 5 team in the league because people say who's the most fun team in the league? Well, it was like the Warriors, like when they had the death ball lineup, all that kind of stuff. Like the Suns are probably going to be the most fun team to watch in the league. The Nuggets with Jokic, they're the most fun team to watch in the league. But the league pass darlings, whatever you want to call them, hopefully they're on national TV a lot more. The Oklahoma City Thunder, I have 6th. I have made this point a couple of times on the podcast, so I won't expand on it a ton. But there's a video game called Red Dead Redemption 2. It is one of the greatest video games ever made, and it tells the story of a outlaw named Arthur Morgan. And Arthur is essentially in this day and age where the presence of the authorities is being greatly expanded upon, and the times of outlaws just running towns and running through and not having any accountability are gone. They're basically dinosaurs, and the whole story of the game is him and his outlaw friends going through this process and essentially learning that they are people from a different time now, and it's happening in the middle. And I think what's happening to be big scale, what's happening in the game of basketball right now is you need to be big, you need to be skilled, and you need to be smart. If you're 5'10", that's just it's really gonna hurt you. But if you're 6'6", if you're Josh Giddey, if you're Jalen Williams, if you're Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if you're Vasily Micic, if you're one of these guys who is 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", you understand entirely not only what is going on the floor, but how you can manipulate what's going on the floor, and then you can make the play after that is the correct one. That's what teams need. It's why we've loved the Boston Celtics for years and why we've loved a guy like Derek White for years or Malcolm Brogdon, because there's these guys that you can get where they're not your superstar. They're a role player, quote unquote, but they actually kind of are doing the superstar things in terms of how they affected defense.
Yeah.
And OKC is just going after these guys.
Even Poku. Poku needs to get rid of all the terrible stuff, but giant, like, absolutely weird, like, metrics as far as his body and size and stuff.
Ousmane Dieng was the same thing.
Yeah.
I saw him handling the ball in Vegas, and I was like, that's what they want.
Even, like, I mean, Chet, we can talk about Chet in a sec, but same thing, like, you have 5 guys, in theory, your 5 best players are all different positions, but all can play together, can all do the off-ball stuff. If they get a rebound, they can all go and make the right read or shoot. I guess Giddey is still working on that and stuff. I don't know what he ended up at as a three-point shooter, but, I mean, to your point, that's why we love watching this team. And then you go to Shai, who is that, and also, like,
is a borderline top 10 player.
I don't want to make. Yeah,
I thought that the first team All-NBA thing was a bit weird. He wasn't even on a team that was above 500. I didn't really agree with that necessarily to that extent. But he was, that season, he was a top 10 player in the league. I'll put it that way. He was every single night he was this guy. To be clear, 31, 5 and 6 and 2 with a block as well. He shot 51 from the floor. He shot 53 on his twos. He took 11 free throws a night and shot 91% on them. Josh Giddey last year, I feel like I have to say these stats because people aren't talking about the Thunder. Giddey, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists a game, shot 48 from the floor. I think the big thing for him and the really concerning thing about me watching him as a rookie, I was low on him watching him as a rookie. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out, was his touch and his 14 feet and in game, because he doesn't finish at the rim. He's not an explosive guy like that. But he shot 52% on his twos. His mid-range stuff really started to work out. To my point, and like the not going to the rim stuff, he takes 2 free throws a game. So he's not that type of scorer, but yet he's at 17 points per game without being much of a shooter.
Yeah. So he, like, to your point about they need smart people and they have smart people.
How does a guy like that average 17 points per game is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because he's like extremely smart and skilled.
He's skilled. And then he goes through a rookie year and he finds out what shots are efficient for him, what are not. You adjust and you're better. And it's not necessarily even that you become a great shooter. He did improve, but it is, I'm sure, shot selection, knowing what you're good at, knowing what you can get away with. Low key, he is one of the best playmakers, especially the size helps, but he sees so well. We didn't even mention Dort.
We'll get to him. Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara, J-Dub, we'll be referring to him as he gets to be called. Don't call him the better Jalen Williams in front of the other Jalen Williams. Do you remember that? Did you see that clip at Vegas?
No.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I'll move past.
Okay.
After the All-Star break, Jalen Williams, J-Dub, averaged 19 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists per game. He looked like another really good playmaker. I just thought he was going to be like a smart off-ball scorer type of guy, and he just looks like he has on-ball chops immediately. He was good defensively as well. He's 21. Josh Giddey's 21. These guys are good right now. And basically what happened with this OKC team is they won 40 games last year, and I thought that they were pretty much a 31 or a 32 win team. But these guys were winning them games over and over again just because of the productivity you're getting from these guys on the ball and having these many options. And then you go through the rest of their roster. You're going to add Micic to it if you're not familiar with Vasile's work. One of the best players in Europe now. He was drafted 9 years ago by Philly. His draft rights get bounced around. He comes to OKC. Incredibly good passer, incredibly skilled, not a ton of explosion, pretty good shooter. Exactly what they need as like a veteran. I remember someone saying like Ricky Rubio is a signing for them this year, and I was like, that makes a ton of sense. And then someone was like, what if they just bring over Vasile? And I was like, that makes even more sense. And they did. Beyond them, Lou Dort, one of the best defenders on planet Earth. He is the guy who is maybe the Drew Holiday All-Star right now for it seems like the defender the players stand for the most in terms of what he does.
Yeah.
And the value that he brings. Kaysen Wallace just looks like another one of him. I love Kaysen Wallace. I talked about him briefly during the draft process. There is no other Drew Holiday, but the player comp is kind of Drew Holiday for him,
Bigger
at least
Drew
defensively.
Holiday, yeah.
Just super strong, defensive-minded, in-your-face guard who can do some stuff on the ball. Again, if the Oklahoma City Thunder are picking him, that means there's something on the ball. Because I watched him and I was like, I don't know. And then I remembered, Kentucky. Yeah, probably. Just that thing again. Isaiah Joe, just on the street.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a good role player who can shoot 40% from 3.
Doesn't miss.
Our good friend, Australian correspondent David, has been trying to acquire Kenny Hustle, Kenrich Williams for 2 years now for the Suns as shadow GM. Unsuccessfully doing so. He's going to continue to do that because he's good. Jalen Williams, not J-Dub, led the league in taking charges last year. Smart, capable center. Their depth is just good. Trey Mann was lighting up Summer League. Again, Summer League, but he can really score. They're missing a center. I don't think the second Jalen Williams, I did it right there. The big version of Jalen Williams, excuse me.
Big guy.
Him as a starting center is a stretch in terms of being a 50-win team, for example, which is like the ceilings we're kind of talking about here for these teams. That's where Chet comes in. And there's a clip on Twitter that went around about a week ago of KG just fanning out, like being a fan in front of Holmgren and just talking about watching him in Utah Summer League, again, to be clear, the environment he was watching him in. But KG, who knows a thing or two about defense, one of the best defensive players of all time, talked about just the instincts and where he was on the floor. And he was like, I see it. You get it. Like, you just get it. And then Chet pointed at KG and said, like, because I watched you do it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing it. And that, to me, like, clicked the thing where it's like, that's what Chet is. He's a phenomenal shot blocker. He's incredible in terms of instincts, ball placement, all that kind of stuff. He's incredible. He's very skilled as an offensive player as well. It's just a matter of him tightening up pretty much everything, footwork, handle. There was some stuff in Vegas where I was like, there's progress that needs to be made.
What he can get away with, because he just had, not playing basketball, not playing it against this level. Yeah, I think the big thing is, like, when you watched him in high school, he would have games where he's struggling, and then suddenly he's like, you know what, I just missed a couple shots, I need to just go, grabs a rebound, takes it all the way, fires up a 3. Like, he's not going to do that in the NBA probably, but he has this attitude about him that I think people, like, in the draft process, like Mike Schmitz talked a lot about it, I think, before he went to work with the Trailblazers, but just, like, he might be skinny, but he is, like, mentally like he wants to bully people, and I think you'll see that when he plays more.
100%. Yeah, and I just think that there's a chance, and if I had to bet on it, I think he's going to be good right away, and there's a decent chance he's really good right away. It's going to be the Wemby thing we talked about in part one, where he is going to come on the floor and people are going to be like, I'm going to punk you.
Yeah.
What are you doing on an NBA floor? You weigh 160 pounds. Get out of here. He's had his skeptics for a long time because of that, and to be honest, I think it's partially deserved because of his frame. But with that being said, I think that he just plays too hard, one. I think that's a big misconception about him at Gonzaga, is that guys in his position with his skill set but his frame would get discouraged too often. Like you said, he just doesn't. You watch high school games of his, he doesn't get discouraged. When Kenneth Lofton Jr. was punking him in those games, he didn't get discouraged. He was still impacting that game, but the highlights did not look good.
No.
Because it's a borderline NBA player putting him under the basket every possession. But he was working his tail off, and I think that that is eventually going to come out for him. And again, the KG clip was just, for me as a KG guy,
real
came
quick.
Through. Yeah.
Is there a chance he has a better season than Wemby? I think there is.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it is. Like, I think Wemby's stock and future is much higher, very high ceiling compared to him.
There was a wave of takes after Holmgren played in Summer League and Wemby played in Summer League where people were like, what if Chet Holmgren wins Rookie of the Year? I was like, yeah, he's going to be, their team's going to win twice as many games, and he's going to impact winning far more. Now he's going to average like 12 points per game compared to Wemby's 19 or 21 or whatever.
Because he has a good team, yeah.
So it'll probably be Wemby still, but yeah, of course. Okay, let me know if I'm capping. You ready, as the kids say? Yeah. Am I capping? Okay, here's the lineup. Shea, Giddey, Jalen Williams, J-Dub, Jalen Williams, L-I-N, Jeremy Lin, at center, and then we got Chet at the 4. Off the bench, Vasily, Dort, Kenny Hustle. Insert 5 here. Jeremiah Robinson Earl was that guy for them at times last year. They didn't really pick up a center on the margins. This is why they got Dario at the deadline. Dario worked out for them. Am I getting too high? Isaiah Joe's going to mix in there. There are a couple of names like Aaron Wiggins I didn't mention who was good for them last year. Keontae Johnson's on the two-way, the Kansas State guy. They brought in Jack White probably to compete for that two-way spot as well.
I mean, Isaiah Joe, yeah. I mean, Isaiah Joe has to play.
They'll play Chet at the 5. That's part of it too.
Yeah, and those two guys are interchangeable, Jalen Williams and him.
I just feel like on paper they're really good. I wish people would see it more, and I hope they will. I hope that when the TV schedule comes out in a week or two, that they're like top 5 in national games. That's not going to be the case. The Lakers are going to have 47, and the Suns are going to be up there too. But there we go. I said I was going to keep it brief on the Thunder, and I couldn't help myself. I was really excited. Knocking on the door, Tier 2. I've got the Golden State Warriors 5th. I've got the Los Angeles Lakers 4th. I'm still with the Kings. Kings are 3rd. And the Kings, who won 48 games last year and are young and are going to be better, theoretically. Vegas, speaking of the capping, they call cap.
Oh, yeah.
44.5 on the win-loss. Like I said, Warriors 48.5 for the over-under. Lakers 47.5. And then the Kings. To quickly jet through this section, I think the Warriors are still going to be very good. I don't think Chris Paul is going to start. That would mean that maybe Draymond just comes off the bench and he's cool with it. That doesn't seem like a Draymond Green thing to me. It doesn't seem like a Klay Thompson thing to me. It can't be Andrew Wiggins. It can't be Kevon Looney. It's got to be one of those 3 guys. I think it'll be Chris. I think it's all going to work out in terms of those guys. I think the 1 or 2 of Pajemski or Trace Jackson-Davis out of Indiana, one of those 2 rookies is going to be good for them right away. I don't like them betting on Moody and Kuminga. I think that last year basically showed, like, is this it? I think we all went in the offseason being like, is this it? It seemed like for Draymond and Klay both showed signs that they were near the end of the tunnel, but then Steph is still one of the best players on earth, and I can't really rule them out. Do you think, are you lower, higher, same-ish?
I might be lower on them. So
you think
Steph has to play out of his mind, which I'm not going to say is not possible.
They're on the outside of the contending picture, to be clear, for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I just don't see how high their upside is from this past season, because I thought, okay, Steph's playing out of his mind. Chris actually does add stability in how they've spoken about it as far as, pumping the brakes on the tempo. I think his mid-range stuff with the second unit is going to really actually fit well, kind of like Sean Livingston did all those years ago with the three-point shooters. I think there's room for that. There's room for him. I just don't believe enough in their role players.
No.
After Looney, Dre.
DiVincenzo was a low-key big loss that didn't get talked about that much.
Big loss there. I just don't see enough pop from those guys. And it's not even about points and Chris Paul has to replace Jordan Poole. No, I think I expect Clay will have a good season. Actually, I think he'll be better than last year just because the farther he gets away from those bad injuries, the better. But I just don't think they have enough pop and versatility in what they bring. And that's just they went through bad stretches last year, and that's just because they don't have enough guys Steve Kerr can trust, and I don't know if any of those are going to change.
They're going to be two guys short if Clay or Dre are indeed dropping off. I really like the Dario pickup as a center, especially on that team. It makes
Gary
a ton
Payton,
of sense.
I think, back.
Yeah.
That's stability.
But he was quietly not the same guy last year that he was. But then again, Pajemski and Jackson Davis I mentioned, because then you get to Moses Moody and Kuminga, who have both not shown that they can earn Steve Kerr's trust. To put it short, the Chris Paul thing will work. It's going to work. They're going to be really good with him on the floor. They're going to win a lot of basketball games still. Are they going to win in the big time with him? No, he's probably going to get hurt again. It's been
just too many
happening over and over
They're
again.
going to struggle between playing them too much and playing them too little to be healthy for the playoffs, I think that's basically what it comes down to, because you need them to produce a lot and too much compared to what those other guys are going to do.
You're either dropping the Lakers to this same kind of group, or you're outside, or you saw them after the deadline. They are this team. Where are you? After the deadline, one of the 3 or 4 best teams in basketball, maybe second.
Yeah, I have faith in the Lakers to some degree, but I also do think this is one of those like the D-backs this year where they made a bunch of changes. It worked really well. Is it going to be continued an upward trend? I'm not even talking about Braun and AD stuff. I'm talking about is Rui Hachimura going to continue to improve or take a leap even? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
you're trusting in those guys taking steps and D'Lo figuring out how to play with this team. And I think those guys are who I think they are. And maybe they'll improve a little bit here and there, but I'm not sure that's enough once teams figure out what they're doing and have, a full season of tape.
Yeah, I believe that Hachimura, he was really good in the postseason. I'm not saying he wasn't, but I still believe there's a ton of question marks there. D'Lo, same thing. Figuring out how to play with him is a really good way to put it. I think Vincent was a steal. I think Austin Reeves was a steal. I think Taurean Prince was a steal. I think they did too well on the margins, quote unquote, there, but Vincent's a starting caliber point guard in the league. The Kings, my case.
Yes.
I already mentioned it earlier. Top 5 point guard, De'Aaron Fox. Top 5 center, Domantas Sabonis. The rest of the core is super solid and relies on one thing, which is Keegan Murray being much better. And guess what? He is going to be much better.
Probably.
I think that he is going to
Shouldn't have been in Summer League, yeah.
I don't want to say an all-star, but I think that some of the stuff he was doing in that Warrior series, considering he's a rookie starter playing in Golden State, some of the stuff he was doing in those games, I was like, this is going to be.
One of the college basketball, I think it was Rob Doster, if you follow college basketball stuff, but he was like, I don't mean this as an insult. It might have been someone else on his podcast, but is basically Keegan Murray's just a nicer Cam Johnson. And that was I'm worried about that. And even if he is now, that's still a really good player. Yeah.
I think that he could average maybe 20 a game.
Yeah.
This year. He was at 12 last year. He might double that.
People laughed at, all you're doing is re-signing Harrison Barnes. And it's nope, that's a good move.
Because Harrison Barnes just has to be slightly worse than he was last year because Keegan Murray is going to be much better. I'm just really happy that after the World Heavyweight Heat Check Microwave Scoring Guard Championship belt was vacant for so long, Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford left us. It wasn't quite sure who we were going to hand it to. Here you go, Malik Monk. Congratulations. You're awesome.
Yeah.
Showed it in the playoffs. Davion Mitchell in that series to me really impressed me. I went in that series being I don't know about Davion Mitchell. We talked about it on the podcast. In fact,
is he not a thing anymore?
I don't know. And then he was good. It wasn't good was Kevin Huerter. Big year for Kevin Huerter. I think that they could look to explore them. The Bradley Beal noise made a lot of sense to me when it came out. It didn't make sense how they got him, of course, but them looking at that need. Love Colby Jones out of Xavier for them. There were teams where I wasn't sure about him in terms of his value. Rookie out of Xavier they got in the second round. Very smart, plays extremely hard defensively. And then Sasha Vezenkov, who I talked about on a lot of the shows. He scored 275 points on 26 dribbles at one point in EuroLeague play. That means that he is an awesome cutter. That means he's a really good shooter. That means he can get his shot off anywhere. And imagine that in that system with that pace, with Fox and Sabonis finding him the ball.
Flying off Sabonis with the ball. Oh, yeah.
That's going to be really, really good. They are in that mix for me when I think of the top 6, top 7s across the league of just like the best 7 when you go into a postseason. I think they're there, man.
There was some stretch at the end of the year where their offense was like legit over 20 games off the charts, not even close to any other team in history as far as offensive efficiency. I don't remember what it was at all, so you can just tell me I'm a liar, but they're really good. It wasn't a fluke.
Let me say, I would have had them in the next tier if not for Sabonis defensively.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can win the title with him in that spot. It's the Jokic point, but with him, and we'll see if he can improve on that. But defensively, you watch him, and it doesn't. I never felt that way about Jokic, to be clear, but I feel that way about Sabonis. There were moments where you're like, should he come off the floor? And when you're thinking about that with a guy who makes All-NBA, who you're paying all this money to, I don't know. De'Aaron Fox in that series very quickly. Point totals 38, 24, 26, 38, 24, 26. Hand injury. Assists 5, 9, 9, 5, 9. 11 turnovers 3, 2, 4, 3, 6, 5. That was his first postseason series. He was playing against Steph Curry, and he was matching Steph Curry for 6 games. He's best clutch player in the league last year. I think that he's underrated still. The top dogs. They're barking.
There's 2 of them.
Tier 1, head and shoulders. I got the Phoenix Suns at number 2. I got the Denver Nuggets at number 1. Just a sign of respect to the Nuggets, but I believe that we could be looking 30 games in and talking about how not Denver screwed up, but Bruce Brown, it was even more of a detriment to them. I mentioned the stat in part 1 about their on-off numbers. Look, if Julian Strawther, Zeke Naji, and Peyton Watson are good, then they're fine. But they aren't. We don't know they're good. They have not shown they're good yet. Chanchar, Naji, and Watson were all guys Malone was trying to figure out if he could play them last year, and he couldn't. We'll see about the 3 picks in the 20s and the 30s. That was Jalen Pickett, Strawther, who I mentioned, and Hunter Tyson. Hunter Tyson had a really good summer league, but they are looking around best starting lineup in the league. They basically, to the top 6 point, the only reason I can say that now is because Bruce Brown's not on the Nuggets. They had the best top 6 in basketball. It's the Denver Nuggets. Do you want to talk more Suns and how they compare to the Nuggets? What do you think? Do you think it's as close?
One.
Do you have the Suns above them? Where are you at?
No, I'm going to give respect to those guys. I mean, if Jokic is what he is, they'll be fine. Like, I also do think they have more versatility, and I think I've said this before on this podcast. They went and made second-round trades during the finals. Their GM, he should be sitting back and being like, I'm enjoying these NBA finals. I put together a finals team that we're going to win, and they did. But he was like, oh, crap, I better get some second-round picks. So they're very, like, their front office is awesome. Like, they couldn't have done anything about the Brown departure. But they're giving themselves options down the line. I don't have trust, like you said, in Naji, Peyton Watson, maybe, because Mike Malone was like, I trust this guy kind of.
There was a lot of buzz last year.
He has enough.
RIP Pac-12 Par 4.
Oh, yeah. He has enough to his game where it's unique, and it's like, okay, if you're going to take the Zeke Naji moments and just become another like small ball defensive versatile guy, let's do that.
It's crazy how you could have given them like one of the Suns minimum guys and you'd feel better.
Yeah.
Like if you gave them Drew Eubanks, or if you gave them Josh Okogie, or if you gave them Yuta Watanabe or Eric Gordon.
Yeah.
And they got Justin Holiday, who's been on 5 teams in 3 years now. Seems like a perfect 3-and-D guy, but it keeps not working out. The Landry Shamet rule, I will invoke.
What's Clemson rookie guy who had a good
Hunter
summer?
Tyson.
Hunter Tyson is just like a big wing shooter guy.
Big wing shooter guy.
So they have some pieces where it's like, okay, we can spot you 10 minutes. You go
Strawther looked like the best
someone.
shooter to me in the draft when I watched.
Okay. So they get 2 shooters. Like, they made good moves. Obviously losing Bones. They still have Reggie Jackson, right?
They still do. The Suns. Here's where I'm going to start.
Yeah, go.
I think that Booker and Durant are a 10 out of 10 basketball fit. They got to show 4% of that because of how the season worked out. I think it's going to start to really blend together quite naturally for them, and I think both of them are going to be together in the MVP conversation at the same time. We're going to run into the Chris Paul, Devin Booker thing again, but it's going to be with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Assuming everyone stays healthy, I think that's how it's going to be. I think Booker has a real shot to win MVP this year because of the way that this team is lined up and where he's going to be able to impact the game both offensively and defensively. I think that Bradley Beal is going to come into this season and he is going to have a real point to prove, and I think he's going to prove it, which is I'm a top 30 player in the league. Why are you guys treating me like I'm trash because of my contract? All this kind of stuff, so on and so forth. With that being said, I rolled through a lot of questions that I have about the team. My questions are not about how everyone fits off the ball. It's been a big talking point the last couple of weeks. They're going to be fine off the ball. All three are extraordinary players off the ball. It comes down to how it goes on the ball and how they manage it between the three of them and making sure everyone is staying cool enough on the ball and not getting cold, and everyone's rhythm and flow and all that kind of stuff. It is not going to be, I don't want to say it's not going to be pretty at the start, but it's going to look so much better in February than it does in November. Like, it's just going to take time for the three of them to figure out how to get everyone's touches. Who is going to be the Chris Bosh? I don't think there can be a Chris Bosh necessarily. Even Dwayne Wade had to step down significantly in that part. Like, KD is going to step down quite a bit. Book's going to step down quite a bit. Beal is going to start on the ball more often than not because he's a smaller guy. But we'll see how it goes from there. And that's the question that I have there necessarily. The alignment of this team, no matter who the fifth starter is, one of these guys is going to have to take a primary defensive assignment. It's probably going to be two of them when you're talking about the best teams in the world. I think Durant's ready for it. I think that Booker is more than ready for it. I don't know if Bradley Beal is, just because I haven't seen him enough. It's just I'm pleading ignorance there. We'll see. DeAndre Ayton, we've talked about it. Defensive Player of the Year. He could be in the running. He could also be a top 25 center in the league like he was in the playoffs for the last three series. And then Eric Gordon, I wrote here. I just don't think enough people are talking, not enough, but I think something that gets missed with him is that whole flow and finding opportunities thing with the big three. He's going to have to find those on the ball as well. And you can't just have him be a super spacer. You're not getting enough out of Eric Gordon if you're just treating him like just a shooter, because he's not just a shooter. He's a really good scorer as well, and you need to find value in that. I think it'll come more naturally than I think, but I just want to see it.
I think just out of Eric Gordon's stuff, I think he will find minutes at point guard where he's going to touch the ball, he's going to feel involved, he's going to run the offense just to take a little off Book and Beal. So I'm not super worried about that kind of thing, that he's just going to be a floor spacer. My big question on the Suns, I think I don't know how this team looks on defense at all. And like, this is the big why you hire Frank Vogel, I guess, is because you want to find that out as soon as in the season as possible. But like, even in the Denver series, there were times where KD and Ayton were not in the same, like, communicating or breaking down. And yeah, it was tough because KD wasn't on the floor much. He's been on this team that long. Now they reset again. It's hard to judge. Like, I'm not sure if it was KD's fault, I guess. I don't know if it was the scheme. I don't know if it was Ayton's fault. I don't know. So I think it's just like they're going to have to get through the front, 2 or 3 months in calendar year, let's say, of the season where they're going to have lots of bad defensive games. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to, and I believe they're going to win and just out offense everyone. And then you're going to have to be like, okay, January, we need to start seeing like less breakdowns, flat breakdowns. Like, this team isn't going to be a great one-on-one defensive team, but you just got to get rid of the breakdowns and know what you're doing by January. Yeah. And I think that's how the season's going to go.
I think they're clearly the best team in the league, but they are actually a I believe it when I see it team.
Yeah.
Where we just need to see it. And before I make my last point on them, the bench is the other one, obviously. And I think, again, the point I made in part one, by January, if you know who your 8 or 9 guys are, you're going to be the best team in the world. If you don't know still in April, like last year, there's easily a situation where Keita Bates-Diop isn't good and Yuta can't stay on the floor defensively, and now you just don't have a wing. Like, you just don't have a wing. You need Toumani Camara or Ish to be that guy suddenly, and that's where, again, you start to run into trouble. I think backup center should be fine. I think one of Goodwin or Okogie will be good. I still think they'll have the guys to be clear, but there are scenarios where they wind up with a short bench once again, but I think they're more equipped to handle it. They would be my title pick if it wasn't for the big man, if it wasn't for Ayton.
Yeah.
I just can't, again, believe it when I see it.
Trust in 4 really good players. You have trust in 3, and it matters that the 3 are good at offense and the 4th is either really good or not good on defense.
And we could be 15, 25 games into the year, and I could change this statement and say, yeah, they're my title pick now, because it looks like he's taking on everything that he needs to, but we'll see. For now, in August, I just can't do it. Can't do it.
I'm with you. And hence Denver.
So you would say Denver's your pick right now?
Yep.
In August?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say so.
Every team behind them that is even in the next 2 tiers of yours have major questions. And look, this is not considering injuries. That team's really good. They didn't get injured for very badly at all through the whole season. And of course, things come up, and you can't put 2 seasons together like that. But that's how we do these things in projecting.
You got to run. We're going to cancel Cats Talk until next week. But give us your top 8 before you go. So you have Nuggets, Suns.
Nuggets, Suns, Clippers, Lakers.
Ooh, Clippers 3. Okay.
I'm assuming. Do I know that they're going to be healthy to start the season? In
yeah,
theory,
just give
they should
everyone
be.
the benefit of the doubt.
Pelicans,
Okay.
Mavs.
5, 6.
Am I forgetting someone?
You have not said.
Oh,
the Thunder
I haven't
yet.
said
you
the
have
Thunder.
Not said the Warriors yet.
Thunder, right with Pelicans, Mavs.
You'd not say the Kings either.
Oh God, Kings. Oh no,
This
is
was
where
less of putting you on the spot and more
Yeah.
of a thought exercise. The West is going to be a mess again. Going to be an absolute mess. Can't wait.
Nuggets, Suns, Clippers, Lakers, Thunder, Pels.
Still haven't said the Kings or the
God.
Warriors. You have them in the plan.
God.
It's going to be nuts. Going to be nuts.
Thunder, Kings. Yeah, I can't keep track of these things in my brain.
That's the thing. If you want to put the Clippers that high, that means you're docking one of those teams like that. Or you want to put the Lakers that high, it's really tough. You didn't even Memphis didn't even come to mind for you. Dallas didn't even come to mind for you at all.
Yeah, that's
Minnesota
fine.
didn't even come to. You're okay. You're okay with that. That's
yeah,
okay.
Minnesota and Dallas. I'm fine
Fair,
with that.
fair to you, sir.
Okay.
All right, we'll be back not next week, but unless something happens, of course, breaking news edition. But if no breaking news edition, we'll be back sometime in late August. We'll be watching DA play for the Bahamas. We'll be watching Chimezi Metu play for Nigeria. I believe that's it right now. Uganda is in that tournament as well, so maybe Ish is playing.
We'll watch the good old USA when those guys get rolling.
And we'll watch those guys and see if there's anything more to take from that. But thanks so much for listening. As you can tell, we had fun with this one. We're just kind of in the middle of baseball season, training camp, all that kind of stuff. But we're basketball people at heart, so we're waiting on that to come back. Thanks to Jeremy Schnell over there helping with the video element of
reminding
this.
us of all the Pac-12 players.
Quickly dismissing James Harden. I'm sorry, but not sorry at the same time. All right.
Can't wait for those trips to Waco. Okay.
All right, Kevin's got meetings. He's a big lead editor, leading all the editors and is leading to do with leading. Bye.